Hi everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Chalkboard Creative webinar series. We are a video production company who work with brands and agencies alike to create killer video content. But as well as being the co-founder of Chalkboard, I'm also a digital PR myself, which is why this episode is hosted by me. So today's chat is with Matt Capon. He's a senior video journalist at the Daily Mirror. The relationship between journalists and PRs is such a crucial one, and I think it's something that as PRs we're really conscious of getting right. And as video continues to grow and publications are using more and more video, I wanted to use this opportunity to ask a few questions which hopefully will help us bridge that gap between PRs and journalists. So, hi Matt, thank you so much for joining us. How are you?
I'm good. Thanks for the invite. I'm really looking forward to this.
Good. I think anything we can do within the industry to improve that relationship between journalists and PRs is always going to be a good thing. I think for me personally, I've always found that just getting to know what would make a journalist's life easier is the best way to build a relationship as a PR. But I guess as a starting point, do you agree with that? And do you have any quick tips to start the episode off?
Yeah, I think the way that you started it off really is important in setting the tone. It's about, I don't like being in opposition and complaining about PRs. I don't like that because I appreciate that ecosystem is very competitive and also can be very quickly become quite spiteful, poisonous and toxic. I don't like doing it, but we do get sent some absurd and frankly ridiculous content where you think, I've got to share this. It is a salient lesson. And sometimes that can come across, I understand, as being a little bit heavy, a little bit of hot air being blown out on Twitter. And it isn't meant like that. But I think it's important. We can cover that in this call, which is why I'm really excited to go through this.
Absolutely. It's all just to improve it as a whole industry. But before we kind of get into that nitty gritty, I've got one question. So, I mean, you're a video journalist, we're a video production company. The question that I'm always going to ask you, what's your favourite film?
Well, I studied media at uni. I've been a massive film addict forever. But I'd have to say it would be Bugsy Malone.
Interesting. I don't think I've ever had the answer to that question be Bugsy Malone. What's the reason for that?
It's escapism in its most innocent sense. It's a time and an era that will never come again. I mean, think about it now. Who in their right mind would cast a film based in Prohibition America, cast entirely with kids? There is so much about that here and now that we will never see. And the weapons are custard pies and splurge guns. It's a musical. It's upbeat, and there are stars in it. I mean, Jodie Foster is in it. That's one of the things that always grabbed me. And I've seen you in Silence of the Lambs as a kid. And first time I watched it was when I was in hospital as a kid. It was on a little VHS machine that they were bringing around the children's ward if you requested it. So the minute I knew they had Bugsy Malone, I requested it. I watched it like 4 times when I was in there. And it's been a favourite ever since.
Nice, so maybe a bit of an element of nostalgia there as well.
Yeah, very much so. Yeah, very much so. Very much so.
Nice. Well, not the answer I was expecting, but I like it. That will come back later. We've got a very, very small quiz for you at the end. So we'll see how well you know the film. So getting into the nitty gritty, some of these questions. So I put out on Twitter a little bit of a request for some of my fellow PRs to get in touch with any questions they have. I personally have worked in PR, traditional and digital now for 4 years, and I've never done a video campaign. Bearing in mind that myself and my partner run a video business, it's quite crazy, I probably should have, but I, like everyone else, have had all of these questions, and I think we tend to stick to what we find safe and what we've got a lot of knowledge of. And I know how to pitch a press release with an infographic or an interactive map or something like that, but when it comes to video, I've just felt a little bit out of my depth. So that's the whole reason for this, and hopefully you can help. So the first question is, what do journalists prefer? Rushes that they can edit themselves and work up, or a video that is compact and ready to use?
Both. And I'll explain why I say that. I think the most important thing in that respect is talk to us, and we will be able to tell you which avenue is going to work best for us, but also possibly for you. I've had rushes sent to me, and they've been fantastic, and I've been able to do something with them. But also, I've had pre-packaged content sent to me, but where they've not spoken to me, I've not been able to use that pre-packaged material because I'm not able to shape it to our brand, to our in-house style, just so it can pass muster through the different desks and we can get it up online. If it's too, and I understand the nature of the game, the nature of the beast is you have your clients to keep happy. There's an issue of brand visibility on the content, it has to get across certain key messages, it has to tick certain boxes. I completely understand that. But from our point of view, that's not always going to translate well to what we can put out on social, or what we can put out on the site. It has to have, we have to have that wiggle room where you guys can be happy, but also we can brand it up ourselves. We can caption it with our in-house style. We can format it as we require, and then we keep both sides happy. So really both, it all comes down to talk to us first. Tell me early what you're doing, and then we can get on the question. So a rush is going to be better, or is pre-packaged content going to be better? We had one example. One brand came to me. It was over a game, and they sent this fantastic pre-packaged trailer that I loved. And there was an interview opportunity with a specialist. So obviously, editor's head very much screwed on. I'm thinking, right, well, I could cut your trailer up between the interview, and for me, that's a natural package there. It couldn't work for the PR. So sadly, the opportunity, we couldn't pursue it, and it got spiked.
Right. So that kind of, there's a couple of questions off the back of that then, which you've essentially answered, I guess. But one of them was, would you automatically disregard a video that had any branding on it? But I guess it comes to whether it's too branded. Where's the line there?
It can't be an advert. We're not going to put something on social or on our site where you're coming to me just to be able to get an advert under the radar of our commercial team. Really, sure. Sometimes I disagree with that call from colleagues. I think some quality of video should go up, but I understand where the company comes from, and I've worked with other titles as well, and it's always been the same. It's that line between you're getting exposure for your product, for your content, but you go too heavy and it's an advert, we're getting nothing out of it.
Yeah.
So it has to be subtle. There has to be nuance to it. Yeah. If you've got a lower third that's plastered on the bottom, something in the top left, something in the top right, you've got too much real estate there on screen, and it's not going to work for us.
Sure. I think that's the same across the board when you're providing content with journalists. That's definitely feedback I've had before. You know, working in an agency, we obviously work with a lot of different brands, and some of our clients are more understanding that even with an infographic, you know, if we're telling a story which is relevant and linked to the brand, but is it a story in itself, it's not an advert, you can't have the brand colours all over it, you can't have logos here, there and everywhere, because that's the kind of stuff that you'd pay for to have in the publication.
Precisely, and that gets flagged up by different teams. And I mean, we had one fantastic video from Pepsi that Chabuddy G was involved with. I loved it. I thought it was really funny, but it came across too much as an advert, and it never got online for us. And it did do well for other titles, right, but it didn't work for us. And you also have to remember that we're very aware of our audience and what our readers like, what works. And sometimes I can see a video and immediately identify it's a great video, won't work for our readers. It just won't do the numbers. Right. And sometimes PRs can take that the wrong way, and they think I'm just going, yeah, thanks. It's like a digital pat on the head, run along, and it's not. I just, sometimes you've just got to say, sorry, won't work.
Exactly, and like you say, it doesn't mean it won't work somewhere else, but I guess that's where getting to know the journalist, getting to know, asking those questions and saying, look, what kind of content are you looking for? Or, I mean, this is a bit of a bold question, I guess, but how do you feel about if a journalist, if a PR was to come to you as a journalist and say, I've got this idea, before we work with a video company, before we put any spend in it, is this the kind of thing that you'd be interested in? How would you respond to that?
Before the pandemic, I was getting calls like that all the time.
Right.
Because I encouraged it. I encouraged it. It builds up a relationship between me and the PR. I can help feed into something and say, look, you want to do this? You might want to go down this direction. I had one PR speak to me about a global campaign that involved a global sporting event. And the way that they described the video to me, I knew it would do well. And I think it was 3 months later, I saw it brought to life. It was the Budweiser campaign for the Women's World Cup, and for the England ladies football team, and it worked. And I knew it would work, and we were able to run it. We were able to get it on site, and it worked alongside our commercial articles that we were putting out about Budweiser. So, and that all came from that initial call of, how do you think this would work? Does it make sense? I'm more than happy to be an impartial opinion. If I don't think it's good, I guarantee I'll tell you.
Yeah, that's great, because I think as PRs, especially when you're really early in your career, you're a little bit scared of journalists. Like, ultimately, journalists are the ones who are going to make or break a campaign. If a journalist doesn't like it, it's not going to do well. And I think sometimes we're a little bit too scared, or that line is a little bit too drawn in the sand, that we don't actually just ask for feedback or pitch things. And something that I was really encouraged to do was just to get in touch and be like, would you use this? And, a journalist might be like, yeah, maybe, we'll see what it looks like. But it just gives you that bit of confidence that it's worth putting your client's budget into. It's worth doing that data scrape or coming up with a video or whatever it is. So that's really nice to hear that you're on that kind of side of things.
Yeah, absolutely. But on the flip side, I do deal with some PRs that try to mug me off. Right. One that I hear a lot is, we will give you this exclusively for an hour.
Right, okay.
That's not exclusively for an hour. I'm just getting it early.
Yeah.
Call it what it is.
Yeah.
Don't drop the word exclusive or exclusively as a hook. I'm not stupid. You're just trying to dangle it in front of me before you roll it out to other people.
So transparency is key. What is a good exclusive? I think that's a question that, as a PR, like, I've come up with my own answer for that. But from you, what would be the length of time you'd be happy to take an exclusive for before it was rolled out? Or would you rather it not be rolled out to anyone else at all?
Let's be realistic to people. I'd say, honestly, it would depend on the content. Some, I would say, you'd go, it's exclusive to us.
Right.
Others, you could say, look, give it to us for 24 hours, 48 hours, then do what you like.
Right.
It really depends on the strength of the content, where you go, actually, this could get a lot of eyes on us, and as a result, a lot of eyes on you. So let's keep it just to us. Or if it's something where you think it'd be nice to have exclusively for a little bit, but then throw that net out as far and as wide as you like. So again, comes back to, let's have a chat. Let's see what could work.
Ask the questions rather than just presuming.
Precisely.
Cool, that makes sense. I think that'll answer a lot of people's questions on that one. So I'm friends with people in digital PR and traditional PR, so I don't want to leave that kind of traditional PR side out, because my background is in traditional PR. I worked at the RSPB, and we would often come up with videos but wouldn't really know what to do with them. So I guess when I'm talking about digital PR, we're talking about potentially bigger campaigns, or campaigns that, like I said, are linked to the brand, but they're entertainment. They are content on their own, and the brand is kind of separate. Whereas if you're kind of in-house, let's say, and you have a message to put across, perhaps from your CEO or a head of, what are your thoughts on receiving kind of talking head videos, essentially to replace what would be a written quote normally?
The problem with talking head videos is often they're dull.
Right, yeah.
And they can be incredibly dry.
Mm-hmm.
If you're going to present a talking head video, dress it up a bit. Dress it up a bit. Look at how Channel 4 do their talking heads.
Right.
Channel 4 are really good at dressing up some of the most mundane messages that people can immediately get because there's a hook. Mm-hmm. There's something there. And there's a load of content they've done that they've made shareable, right, that otherwise would be quite dry and quite flat. So if you're going to do a talking head, try to make it a bit more engaging. And I appreciate that could be more easily said than done. Mm. But it's often about what you're trying to say. What's the talking head trying to say? What's the point of the talking head? Could it be said in a different way that makes it engaging, that gives it that little bit of sparkle, that little bit of a different flavour, where I could look at it and go, that's an interesting take.
I guess a key part of that is having a goal. Like, I think so many people from kind of a chalkboard perspective, so many people just want video because that's what everyone's telling them to do, but there's no goal to that video. They don't know what the aim of it is. And I think if you get that really nailed down and concrete before you start to shoot anything, you've got a way better chance of that being really engaging rather than just doing a video because that's what everyone else is doing.
In another life, when I worked in higher education, what I always used to tell the students was do a paper edit. Write down your idea. Mm-hmm. If you can visualize it on paper, then making it and giving it a purpose is going to be a lot easier.
Yeah.
If you just want to do a video for video's sake, today I can say, then just start a TikTok account. Go put your video on TikTok and just leave it out there in the ether. But if you're doing a TikTok for the sake of doing a TikTok, fair play to you. But if you're doing a video for a brand or a business or an event, but you don't know why, then I'd say scale it back, put it down in writing. What's the video going to achieve? Where do you want the video to be seen? Do you want it to be shareable? Is it going to be something that's getting a message across? If you're thinking about what the video's purpose is after you've made the video, you're doing it wrong.
Absolutely. Yeah, and I think on that then, because you just kind of brought up, I guess, some kind of different platforms. When you're receiving video, is there a difference in what you're looking for in terms of video for a website and an article and video for social media? And is that something that as a video journalist you even touch, or are there lots of different departments to deal with the different kind of platforms?
See, the thing is with video now, because there's so many different takes on video within social, as well as broadcast, as well as online, everybody thinks that one format is it, and it rarely is. And the other one that does my nut in is when we get GIFs. A GIF is not a video, it is an animation.
Yeah.
I could shout at the sky the number of times I get a GIF. And people go, oh, do you like the video? No, it's an animation. It's lovely, but it's not a video.
Yeah.
And they only really do well because they're short. So the engagement and the conversion rates on them will be good because they're 5-6 seconds long, but they rarely say or do anything.
Sure.
Now, in terms of formats, ideally, the standard 16:9 dimension is really what is best for us, because that's quite flexible, because then we can square it off for Facebook. We can play around with proportions for Instagram, maybe Instagram stories. And that's really it. Sometimes we get an Instagram story video in, one that's been filmed on portrait on someone's phone. Now, when I worked at the Standard, they asked me to do a quick video tutorial with their property team. And no disrespect to them, they were lovely. But when I spoke to them, it was like introducing cavemen to the wheel. It was weird, because the way I described it was, I'll put my phone up. If you're filming like this, think about how you watch it on TV. Your TV isn't 9:16, it's 16:9. So think about what you would see on a television screen. That should always be that one guideline that you have. Now, obviously, with Instagram stories, that's now somewhat different because it wants you to film in portrait. But even then, if you look at IGTV, they very quickly lost that and shifted to 16:9 because that is how people primarily will consume content. YouTube alters its ratio now. So you can be holding your phone normally at 9:16 and it will play a 16:9 video and it will just alter the dimensions in the player. It's still the go-to. Now we'll take square video, we'll take portrait video, but 9 times out of 10, it will be to fit onto a monitor on a screen. So that should always be at the forefront of people's minds. What platform do you want your video to be seen? But equally, if you're sending it to me, what platform do you think I'm going to be putting it out on? And the answer is, of course, primarily the website, primarily social media.
So I guess sometimes I've seen video on news websites, which is the kind of way that I guess you would film it naturally on a phone, which I think a lot of people now would flip it around, but for some, I guess they're still holding it that way. And you get like the blurred edge. Is that purely to make it look a little bit more aesthetic? I mean, that's normally when someone's captured, you know, a live moment which can't be captured again, whether it's, I don't know, you know, capturing a crime or whatever it is. I guess that's the only way in which you would use that sort of format potentially.
It fills the screen. You've got to think about what works best for the video. I prefer having that one layer that is blurred and then having the main video in the middle reduced down as the focal point. Some colleagues in other roles have always just left it as is, but there's real estate there on the screen. The screen, in my mind, professionally, should be full. If it's a landscape video, fill the screen. Can it be scaled up? Can you make it much more friendlier to a desktop user experience, to a mobile user experience? So that's why we do it.
That makes sense. So I guess it's similar, but not quite the same thing. But is there an ideal length for a video that you're looking for?
90 seconds is always the sweet spot. That should always be the magic number. We can go above that depending on content. Sometimes we can go below it. For social, we're looking at something that should be no less than 60 seconds. If it's less than 60 seconds, it's really about shareable value, but it won't be of great interest to us across social. 90 seconds is your sweet spot. We can push that up to about 3 minutes, but it has to be real top draw, top tier quality content, because the longer the video goes on, the higher the drop-off rate's going to be for the audience. So 90 seconds is normally that sweet spot where you can capture someone, get a message across, and you're done.
Nice. Cool. And another one which I guess is a little bit more kind of technical is the use of music. So we get asked this all the time, you know, when we're creating video for clients and they want really popular music, songs in there, like where does it sit with you on that? That
would sit with our lawyers, because we can't use licensed material. Full stop. Sometimes we'll share from people's TikToks or from Instagram where they've overlaid a pre-existing clip. 9 times out of 10, we'll take that clip out because that's covered by a license that we don't have.
Sure.
So in terms of that music bed, it's got to be license free.
Cool. And another question that someone asked, which I thought was really interesting, it came from somebody who is at an agency and they're just starting to consider using video as part of their digital PR campaigns. And I think their reservation is kind of hiring someone like Chalkboard to come up with something and to maybe spend that budget. So they asked whether you'd accept if it was a campaign where there were, let's say, statistics and a study involved, but it had you know, whether it was just in a template form or whether it was footage that they got from Shutterstock or whatever it was, would you accept that, or does it need to be created by the person who's sending it to you?
I feel sorry for them. I was hired by an agency many moons ago to be that in-house video creator. And the agency, who is incredibly successful now, paid absolutely no attention to video. They didn't pay attention to infrastructure. They didn't pay attention to the need for cameras. And my professional relationship with them didn't last long. which was a shame. So I can understand their reservations because I've been in that position. Now, in terms of that, the delivery of material, that's one where it comes back to the conversation. Talk to us. Let's see what you've got. Could we have something that might work for you? Is there something that we could help with? What material have they already got? How could we make it work? If they're just starting off with video, I would say reaching out to journalists and to video desks and to news publishers with a pre-existing content before they've established their video identity and their voice that they're going to be giving over in video. That's ill-advised as far as I'm concerned. I think take it slowly. Look at what you want to achieve with video first, then look at that first story that you're going to throw out to the sharks and see who's going to bite. Don't jump in with both feet right now, because it might put you off of video for a lot longer, because people might not react well. So be tentative, but be confident. If you want to do it, just take it nice and steady, and then get a nice foothold within the video ecosystem.
It is such a different world, isn't it? And as I said before, you know, I've worked on a lot of campaigns where we spend budget on designers to come up with an infographic or devs to bring an interactive map to life. And at no point have I ever felt sort of a lot of reservation for putting aside budget to pay designers or pay devs to do that. Or, you know, in some occasions they've been in-house, but I haven't worried about spending the client's budget on that time. But when it comes to video, I think just because it's so new, I mean, don't get me wrong, there are some digital PR agencies who are smashing it, some who have in-house teams doing it now. So there's clearly, like, it's growing. I think that's why I wanted to have this chat, was because it feels like we're really at the cusp of PR agencies starting to do it more. And this is where I see some of these potential problems of people just firing GIFs over to you and sending, you know, the wrong format and something that's 10 minutes long for you to edit down yourself. So I guess what you're saying is, with all of this, that level of transparency and just asking the questions is probably the way forward. But not all journalists are, and rightly so, as free with their time as yourself. And I guess my question is, how different are the practices from, say, where you work to other publications?
It's chalk and cheese. It's absolutely chalk and cheese. I think, not to talk down the industry, but I didn't come into this job from a journalism background. So I've been around the block a bit in different roles, and I can understand people's perspectives, their concerns, their hesitations, and just how important a simple conversation can be. I get the value of that.
Yeah.
A lot of my other colleagues who are razor sharp, clinical, they know their story, they're going to be banging out the copy, they're regimented about when things need to get up to the editor to be looked at and published. They're not being cruel, they're not being unkind. No. They're just working to a very clear timeline. I have a little bit more breadth in what I can say and do with video in terms of talking to third parties, because if I can see there's a relationship to be built there, I'll try and build it. So I try to give that over. Other places I've worked are cutthroat. They just won't tolerate it. Others will be a lot more friendly to PRs and will actively try to cultivate a really positive relationship, sometimes at the detriment of deadlines, sometimes at the detriment of some professional practice, not going to lie. So it's a difficult one to give a really all-encompassing answer to. I think the way that you can normally gauge practice and responsiveness to video content is what the video content of the publishers is like. You can often tell by the angle and the tone of the material that they're putting out. If they're not putting out a lot of original content, or they're using a lot of agency content, particularly on social, it's sometimes a reflection of the way that their hard news agenda is taking precedence, and fair play to them. or if they're taking out a lot of lifestyle angled content, how that softer news is something that really garners their attention. So I think I've answered the question, or I'm just laying back in the long grass.
I think it's basically the same as what I've heard any journalist say, even if it's a case of sending a press release and an infographic or just a press release. See what I've done before. Look what the publication writes about, look at their style, look at their tone, look at how much kind of branded content they take versus none, and then match it as much as you can.
And do not send me an email that opens with "Hello, how are you?" Do not do that. Do not do that. I swear, if I am in the wrong mood one day, I'm going to get a PR that opens with "Hello, how are you?" And I will unload about my day, from my morning dump to how it has been through everything else, up until the point that I've read that email.
It's a killer question in the PR community of should you say hello, how are you, or should you not? I personally don't, just because I have been burned before by journalists coming back with a very, very long explanation of the day, which I found very funny, but I don't think that's the way they intended. But yeah, I mean, I think it's the classic. Sometimes you can't, you're not going to win everyone over, and the perfect pitch, the perfect video for one journalist isn't going to be perfect for another. So I think in classic PR style, you've got to have that resilience, and you've got to keep tailoring it for different people.
Let me put it this way. You've got the "Hello, how are you?" email. Fair enough. I understand that there was a lot of effort that went into pushing send. I get that. I completely understand that. But then it's the follow-up 2 hours later.
Right.
"Hi, have you seen my email?
Yeah.
I haven't responded to you. Take the hint."
So with that in mind though, because I do follow-ups, I'll always do one follow-up maybe 3 or 4 days later, depending on the publication. Should I not do that? Is like what is the line on follow-ups? Because 1 and 2 hours later feels a bit obscene. Even the next day on most occasions feels a bit soon. But what is your view on that?
I welcome follow-ups where people have been talking to me as an individual and not just a cell on a spreadsheet.
Mm-hmm. So it's the personalisation that matters more than anything.
Entirely. One thing that, honestly, glib remarks aside, if a PR's made a real effort to message me directly and then says that they've got a release or they've got a piece of content that they want to send me, they send it to me, I notice it, but I've not had a chance to reply because I've been busy, and then they follow up, I will often be apologetic and say, "Hi, sorry, never had a chance to reply to you. Let me get back to you. We might be able to do something with this." However, on the flip side, if there's been no attempt at personal contact and it's just, "Hi, how are you?" 2 hours later, have you had a chance to look at my email? Well, no, because you've not had a chance to realise that I don't care about a timber shortage in the UK and the impact that has on shed owners. That's a genuine press release that was sent to the video desk. Shed owners are facing crisis point because of a timber shortage. It's a video desk.
That wasn't a video about the timber shortage. It was just a press release
sent to the video desk.
Right.
And then following that, there was another one about how great it was that native oysters were being relocated into UK waters.
Right.
No video for that. And then they followed up.
Yeah, I can see. Yeah, I mean, I'm always going to want to sit on the PR side, but sometimes it's quite hard to defend that kind of work. And that's definitely just through automation, because any PR, whether you're great, bad or indifferent, that if you're sending it to a video desk, it needs to be a video. So I think that's where, sometimes scraping all of these databases like Viewly or Roxel or whatever it is, scraping a load of journalists into a spreadsheet and just sending to all of them, that spray and pray approach does not work at all. And in this case, you're going to end up pissing off a journalist like yourself.
One thing I did intentionally, and it's been picked up by one very good PR friend of mine, I'm aware that our Twitter profile pictures are often used in these databases to identify us.
Right.
There's a reason why I use Dom Jolly from Trigger Happy TV shouting into the giant phone.
Right.
Just to make the point. I know how that works.
Yeah.
So if you're not paying attention to me, I revealed it to a BBC travel journalist. I've got an email filter that filters out PR nonsense. I call it white noise. Right. So if it hits keywords, the last time of checking before I jumped on this call, I have just under 1,500 emails in there that have been filtered based on keywords that hold absolutely no relevance to me or my job, but I still get them.
So I guess a few tips there. Be super relevant. Make sure that if you're pitching to a video desk, you're including video or at least referencing some video that you're planning on pitching in the future. And make sure that you've done a little bit of research and know who you are, or at least have made some sort of attempt to personalize and make that personal connection. Would that be fair as tips?
It would make so much difference. And sometimes I dip into that filtered folder, and there'll be some things that have slipped through the net, and I'll follow up on. But the fact that I'm still using it does say a lot. So
I was about to ask you, which I think we've just covered, but let's summarize them. What are your 3 pet peeves when it comes to PRs? And what would be your biggest tips to cut through the noise and make your life easier?
Pet peeve number 1, a lack of personalization. You're not paying attention to who I am or what I do, so I'm not going to pay attention to who you are or what you do. There's an issue of value and respect there. Pet peeve number 2 would be the art of the follow-up. Sounds like a Donald Trump book. But follow-up needs to be done with a personal touch. And I can tell when the personal touch is in it. And if that personal touch isn't there, I'm not likely to follow up.
Sure.
And pet peeve number 3 is that presumption of value. Often there will be a presumption of value in what we get sent to us.
Right.
And if that puts me off sometimes, because I'm sure it's a fantastic piece of content. I'm sure it's going to have value and purpose and meaning. But if you're telling me that it's world leading or groundbreaking, or it stars this person from The Office or that person from some BBC Three show that I would never watch, you're not really thinking about this professional relationship. I want to know about what you've made. Tell me who's in it, and we can look at value and how I can angle it to other desks to try and get a story out of it, or how I can shape it to work for us, if we're going to just put it on the site video player, or if it's going to go on social. Never presume that there's value to something as a way to give it a hook to me. I'll know where the hook is on a piece of video content. Really.
Yeah. So in terms of when you're pitching then, and when you're writing the pitch email before you're sharing the video, would a good way to approach it just to be giving you sort of the who, what, so the client, if it's about a brand, the what is it, just keep it to the facts without sort of going with any of that expressive language like world leading or whatever it is?
Well, yeah, absolutely. Well, first of all, if you go too heavy on that language, you'll end up in my white noise filter, and there you'll live in perpetuity. It's like my room 101. Be honest. Be honest. I'm not going to broadcast, I've had this brand get in touch with me, and this is what they're asking me to do. That's not how I roll on this. Tell me, we're thinking about rolling out this campaign. We're going to get this celebrity. We're going to get this public figure, and they're going to be doing X, Y, and Z. Would you be interested in coming down and filming this? Would you be interested in a few pieces to camera? What if you could submit questions and we could film it for you? I'm more than happy to lay out a few questions and a few ideas to PRs, and then you guys can go out and film it. And that's a guarantee of a hook. I mean, we did it once with one company just over 18 months ago. They went out, did the filming for us. We ran the video, and it made it onto the site as well as social. And that was effectively almost like an ad hoc brief from us. If we could get a couple of shots of this, a couple of questions here, and then we could roll it out and see what happens.
I think that especially would be so valuable for an in-house PR. I think that kind of tip and that knowledge, that might not be doable if you've got 8 different clients that you've got to come up with ideas for. But if you're in-house and you are on brand, knowing that, I think, would be a game changer.
Yeah, absolutely. And also, by us talking like that, suddenly I'm interested, I'm invested. I've fed into an idea that I'd quite like to see through. So you've almost got me there. And that's half of the job done, because suddenly I'm interested. I want to see that piece of content, because then I fed into it and I can go, right, guys, they have made this for us. So when I'm selling that to colleagues and I'm selling that to different desks, suddenly there's a different angle to it, rather than, well, they sent it over to us. If I can say they made it for us, suddenly it's an entirely different creature.
Sounds good. I think that makes a lot of sense. Well, we're coming to the end now, but I want to ask you a couple of questions based on your favourite film, which you said is Bugsy Malone, which was quite a surprise, but I'm here for it. I was in Bugsy Malone in my Year 9 production, so it's got a big place in my heart.
There must be about several generations of people that were in Bugsy Malone. It's like our shared identity.
I feel like the rights must be free for it at this point, because every single school in the UK at least has put on a performance of Bugsy.
Straight up.
Definitely. So my 3 questions are, what year was Bugsy Malone released?
Isn't it late 70s, like 77, 78?
Very close, 1976. So no point, but very, very close. Okay, so the next one is the duration of Bugsy Malone. So I will give you a point if you are within 10 minutes.
I would say it is 110 minutes?
So it's 1 hour 33 minutes. So what's that?
So 1 hour 60, 30s 90. So it's just under 100 minutes.
Just under. Okay, and the final one. So this is a game, by the way, that myself and my partner play all the time with film. So it's the three film game. So the last one is, what is the Rotten Tomatoes score? And this is always the one that usually kind of gives people ammunition in why it's their favourite film, or it kills them. Because one of my favourite films has a very low score and it makes me furious.
What would the Rotten Tomatoes score be? Bugsy Malone. I reckon that would be Marmite on that site. I don't think it's done well. I reckon it'd be 3, 4.5?
83%, which I was really shocked at. I did this.
Fantastic.
We played this game the other day, and so we just throw films at each other and we just guess them, and we've got a point system and we've got a big tournament going on. But I had Drop Dead Fred and it was 11%, and I was just distraught because I absolutely love that film, even though I can see why it's there. But
that's shocking. I thought now I'm going to go on to Rotten Tomatoes to see what other terrible films have been scored at, because Drop Dead Fred deserved better than that. Rick Mail is a genius.
100%. It's a really fun game. It's it opens your eyes to the views of the public when it comes to films and how we are not to be trusted with recommendations. But just wanted to finish it off on a little bit of a lighter note. But thank you so much. I think I've learned a huge amount in that from a PR perspective, and also it's given me a lot of knowledge to give to other PRs who talk to us about video. So thank you so much for your time. I do want to say as well, just we did obviously offer a fee, but you have very graciously and kindly given that to charity. So just wanted to give you a bit of a shout out for that. You're obviously a journalist who respects PR's time. I'm sure you're on Twitter, so if people do want to get in touch and ask you some questions, what's your handle?
Well, Google me. I never came prepared for that.
I'll tag you in the webinar anyway.
I didn't come from. I think I'll end by saying I didn't come from a journalism background. I started off in nightclubs. Working with promoters, so I know what it's like for the competitiveness on things. Talk to me, send me messages. If you're really lucky, you can WhatsApp me, and we can see what can be done. And please don't send me press releases about sheds.
No, I think that's tip number one. No more sheds. Perfect. Thank you so much, Matt.
Nice one. Thanks a lot.